We are now live.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Michi-Saugeak territory and in the traditional territory of the Michi-Saugeak and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Members McKelvey and Donald.
Be it resolved that the March 11, 2024 Land Division Committee agenda be hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of the February the 12th meeting? Members Kennedy and Snyder.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the Land Division Committee meeting held February 12th, 2024 be approved as printed and circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. I will move into our applications for consent. First is an application by Hayes for a long-term lease of a Shore Road allowance in Harcourt Park.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll share screen briefly and walk committee through the application. Okay, I trust everybody can see the map on screen.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Okay, perfect. So application H00424 is for the lands of Hayes, and this is a waterfront property on Allen Lake in Harcourt Park. Municipal address is 1092 Bob White Lane, and what the application today will do is amalgamate or merge the leaseholding that the Hayes currently have on the property with the Shore Road allowance. And the intent of this will be because the cottage is partially located on the Shore Road, and there's a note in the Dysart endorsement report that the Hayes do wish to demolish this cottage and rebuild with a new building that will be further back in compliance with Dysart's waterfront setback. So that's a good thing. But they need to have their lease holding encompassing the Shore Road allowance in order to do that. So Dysart has endorsed the application. Staff have no objections, subject to the conditions that are in the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions from committee members? Hearing no questions, or is there anyone who wishes to speak to the application?
There is no one registered to speak towards this application today.
Okay, thank you. Then could I have a mover and a seconder to grant provisional approval to the application? Members Kennedy and Snyder.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to application for consent H-00424 Hayes, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-00424 Hayes, subject to the conditions of approval. Member McKelvey?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Yes.
Member Kennedy?
Yes.
Member Donald?
Yes.
Chair Danielson?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next application is an application from Wiley for a lot addition in Algonquin Highlands.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to walk committee very, very briefly through this. I understand that there is a representative from Morgan Planning and Development who'd like to do a presentation as well. So I will let them take the reins for the bulk of the presentation. So very briefly, this is a water access property. And what's occurred here is that a septic system was installed in this red hatched area here. And unfortunately, that system partially encroaches over the lot line. So the remedy here is to do a boundary adjustment between the granting lands, which are in purple, to the benefiting lands in yellow, and that will correct that septic encroachment by bringing it completely onto the property. So Algonquin Highlands has endorsed the report. County staff have no issues, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Any questions for Adam at this point? Member Donald and then Member Snyder.
Adam, it appears from the aerial photograph that the cottage is on, or not on the subject lands. Would that be on the shore road allowance? And is the shore road allowance part of, or rather owned by the applicant?
Through you, Madam Chair, yeah, the air photo does suggest that those buildings are within 66 feet. The status of the shore road allowance, I don't know, but perhaps Mr. Morgan can enlighten us.
Member Snyder.
Thank you. Adam, I'm just looking at the setback on the septic bed. It's labeled as 3 meters. That's an appropriate setback or meets the zoning bylaw requirement, is it?
Through you, Madam Chair, it would be a building code requirement. And again, I don't want to get out of my lane here, but 3 meters to a lot line is a number I've seen before as meeting the code.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Adam at this point? Okay, could we, I believe we have, is it Lauren Arsenault here to speak to the application?
Yes, she will be brought forward.
Okay.
Good afternoon, committee members. Oh, just give me 1 second here. You can see me now. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address this application, and thanks to staff for their summary. Yes, my name is Lauren Arsenault and I'm a planner with Morgan Planning and Development, and we are representing the property owner of 12484 Someday Isle within the township of Algonquin Highlands in support of a lot boundary adjustment with the budding parcel to the southwest. This application is beneficial both to the grantor and the grantee, and is a neighborly resolution to an inadvertent encroachment, of an existing septic bed, which services 12484 Someday Isle. The proposed boundary adjustment would result in a marginal increase to the size of the benefiting lands, which is developed island waterfront property, and a marginal decrease to the retained lands, which are vacant. The Council of Township of Algonquin Highlands passed a resolution supporting the boundary adjustment on January 18th. And as a condition of consent, the township has requested the retained lands be rezoned to recognize deficient lot area and frontage. Morgan Planning and Development is of the opinion that the application represents good land use planning, and we request that the application be approved by the Land Division Committee. I'm available to answer any further questions that committee may have. And just to address the one question in regards to the location of development on 12484 Someday Isle, I do not know if the property owner owns the shore road allowance or not. But certainly if committee is looking for a yes or no on that, we can look into that and provide that information to committee.
Mr. Kozlowski said that you had a presentation.
I don't think it's necessary to go through the presentation. I think that the summary it's a fairly straightforward application. So I think that that summary that I provided and Mr. Kozlowski also provided gives a good background on the application.
Questions from committee? Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Oh, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, just, while Ms. Arsenault was, doing her presentation, I looked up, the septic requirements for a distribution pipe to a lot line. It is 3 meters.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Arsenault from committee members?
I would have thought the ownership of the shore road allowance would have been on the parcel register, or the PIN 122 that they reference in the report.
Can you speak to that, Ms. Arsenault?
I don't. My colleague wrote the report. I apologize. I don't see that PIN in our files here. So I can't verify that. I apologize.
Mr. Kozlowski.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, I'm just, I'm gonna pull up the parcel fabric here on our GIS. Sometimes it'll give us a clue if there is a shore road there and whether it's owned. If you just bear with me for one moment, I'll take a look.
I just raised the issue because the aerial photograph appeared to show the existing buildings, not on what they identified as the subject property. I think it's appropriate to include the septic system into the property now, but that I was just wondering.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, it's not unusual to see cottages completely on shore roads that are not owned, especially ones that were built back in the 1940s or 50s. And I know that municipalities try to clean that up wherever they can, and to get the ownership into the private landowner's name, because then it makes issuing a building permit a lot easier. Okay, so the legal description in the GIS, it has concession 12 part of lot 28, and then there's an instrument number that would lead me to believe that the shore road is not owned, because if there was a shore road, it would be identified as a part 1 on 19R, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see that here, so probably safe to say it's not owned.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for either Ms. Arsenault or Mr. Kozlowski? Hearing none, could I then have a mover and a seconder to grant provisional approval to the application? Members Kennedy and McKelvey.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to consent H-00524 Wiley, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of consent H-00524 Wiley, subject to the conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Member McKelvey.
Yes.
Member Snyder.
Yes.
Member Kennedy.
Yes.
Member Donald.
Yes.
Chair Danielson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arsenault.
Thank you, committee.
The next application is by Clayton, and it is for a lot addition between two waterfront lots on Kawagama Lake in Algonquin Highlands.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll share screen and walk committee briefly through the application. So the application before committee today is for a lot addition between two waterfront properties on Quagama Lake. It's between 4011 Quagama Lake Road, which is the granting lands, and 4015 Quagama Lake Road, which is the benefiting lot. And what this application will do is convey this triangular kind of pie-shaped piece from the larger property at 4011 to the smaller property at 4015. The area of this triangle piece is just over 4,100 square feet. And when I spoke to the applicant, I asked in general what the purpose of it was, and they just want to have a bit more of a buffer between the property next door in the event that it's ever redeveloped with a larger cottage. They just want to have a little bit of a treed buffer there. And I did take some pictures. They are attached to the staff report that showed the area to be conveyed, and I trust committee saw those. So Algonquin Highlands has endorsed this proposal. County staff have no issues, subject to the recommendations and the conditions in the report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions from the committee for Mr. Kozlowski? I believe that we have Mr. Ron Mack, who is going to speak to the application.
He is just being moved forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mack.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll be brief. I think that the application's already been sufficiently described. I'm essentially here to answer any questions that may arise. And I can note that I've reviewed the draft conditions, and there's no problem with the conditions, proposed conditions provided.
Are there any questions that the committee members have for Mr. Mack? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to grant provisional approval for the application? Members Snyder and Donald.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the report related to consent H-00624 Clayton, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of consent H-00624 Clayton, subject to the conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Member McKelvey.
Yes.
Member Snyder.
Yes.
Member Kennedy.
Yes.
Member Donald.
Yes.
Chair Danielson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mack.
All right, thank you.
The next application is by Steele for a new right-of-way over an existing private road to 4 waterfront properties in Dysart et al.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll walk committee briefly through the application. So application H-00724 is for a number of rights of way for 4 waterfront properties that currently enjoy access from a private road. However, it was determined that the granting lands owned by Steele never did have right of way. And basically on this sketch here, this is Harburn Road, and Pluto Trail comes in off of Harburn. And it's interesting because the properties, I'll call them downstream, which are highlighted in yellow, they all have rights of way up to the Steele property, and then that's where the right of way ends. So the application today will see the Steeles will grant right of way to these 4 waterfront lots, and basically gap or bridge the gap here in the legal right of way for these waterfront parcels. Staff have no objection. Dysart has endorsed the application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. We have suitable conditions of consent that will allow these rights of way to happen. I'd be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? We're smooth sailing today. Okay, hearing no questions, could I then have a mover and a seconder to grant provisional approval for the new right-of-way? Members Kennedy and Snyder, thank you.
Be it
And there's-
resolved that,
Sorry, there's no one, I just wanted to let the committee know there's no one to speak to this application.
thank you. Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton receive the report related to application for consent H-00724 Steel, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-00724 Steel, subject to the conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Member McKelvey,
Yes.
Member Snyder,
Yes.
Member Kennedy,
Yes.
Member Donald,
Yes.
Chair Danielson.
Yes.
Thank you.
The final application is for a bell easement in Algonquin Highlands on Couchog Lake Road.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before I get into the application presentation, I just wanted to take note for committee that in the conditions section of the report, I've added a condition number 7 to the resolution, and condition 7, it was an inadvertent omission. Condition 7 is that we require a clearance letter from Algonquin Highlands. So that's a standard condition. It just got overlooked. So I think when Alana reads the resolution, it'll reference that change. Okay, and I'll share screen. So the subject property is at 2156 Couchog Lake Road in Algonquin Highlands, and it is a waterfront parcel. It does have some frontage on the lake here, and then it flanks onto Couchog Lake Road. And what the application will do is provide Bell Canada with an easement, and that easement is highlighted in this black dashed line here. So the hydro infrastructure is already here in place. The poles are all on the ground, and Bell will basically piggyback on top of the hydro infrastructure. So nothing will be changing on site. The hydro corridor is there, and it's just to grant Bell access for maintenance and installation of telecom software. The application, staff have no objection, subject to the conditions in the report with addition of condition number 7. And I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Kozlowski on the application? I believe there is a Mr. Nightingale as an agent here to speak to the application.
Yes, he's being moved forward.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nightingale.
Hi there. Good afternoon, all. I'm here just to answer any questions if there are any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Nightingale? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to grant provisional approval to this application? Members Donald and Kennedy. Thank you.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton receive the report related to consent H-00824 buyers, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H-00824 buyers, subject to the amended conditions of approval by adding condition number 7 that requires a municipal clearance letter to be issued to the Secretary Treasurer of the Land Division Committee. Member McKelvey,
Yes.
Member Snyder,
Yes.
Member Kennedy,
Yes.
Member Donald,
Yes.
Chair Danielson.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Nightingale.
Thank you.
Mr. Kozlowski, is there any other business?
Through you, Madam Chair, no other business. And I did see some of you attend the OLT hearing last, I guess it was more than a week ago now.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, it was that was number 9 for me, and every one of them's different. What I found with the county solicitor is he gave me a lot of leeway to speak. I've been in front of the tribunal and the OMB before, where the lawyer like guides me very specifically with specific questions, whereas John just kind of left it open for me to go through the report. So I had to do a little bit more thinking on my feet than usual, but those are always good experiences, because you know, if the board member asks for clarification, and if you know what the policy's intent is, I think that's the important part, and that the board member gets it.
I thought everyone did well.
Yep.
Any idea how long it will be before there's a decision made? Is there a kind of a general time frame that?
It could be anywhere from 3 weeks up to 3 months. It just depends on how busy they are. I've seen them come back in a few weeks, so that's what I'm hoping for. I think Tammy had a question.
Tammy, go ahead.
Just, that was kind of what I was wondering too, how long it would be. I mean, there wasn't a lot of technical information provided by the appellant, so I'm sure the chair won't have a lot of that sort of detail to go through. So hopefully it's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, well, it's like I've been in hearings before where I attended basically as a friend of the tribunal, where I just kind of sat in the back and I would be brought forward if they had, any clarification. I've sat in ones before where it was kind of, neighbor versus neighbor, and they didn't have planners or lawyers representing. And sometimes those hearings can get interesting because the lay people aren't familiar with the decorum. And this member, as you saw, was pretty good at keeping things on track and avoiding interruptions.
Yeah, she was very good.
Yep.
And the applicant was or the appellant, I guess, is a bit of a handful. Okay, the only other thing that we need to discuss is our next committee meeting. I just noticed in my book that I've got a note that there's an emergency measures meeting that day, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure if it's a county meeting or an Algonquin Highlands meeting.
The Madam Chair, the other thing is that day is the total eclipse of the sun, and I will be sitting on a lawn chair in Kingston. I'm happy to participate that day, but I'll be sitting in Kingston.
So one thing I noted too, I looked at the calendar, and April starts early, so we're going to have a pretty fast turnaround between this meeting and the first one in April. If there's going to be conflicts on the Monday, is there any interest in either bumping it a week or bumping it maybe to the Tuesday? We can do that. It's up to committee though, just a suggestion.
The 15th, the following Monday would work for me. How does that work for everyone else?
Works for me.
For me.
Okay,
I'm
how's
okay.
that for you, Adam?
Yes, that day works fine.
Okay, right on. So our next meeting will be April the 15th.
Okay.
And having dealt with that, could I have a motion to adjourn? Members McKelvey and Donald.
Be it resolved that the March 11th, 2024 Land Division Committee meeting be hereby adjourned at 1:29 p.m.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good
Kylie.
Thanks
afternoon.
all.